Harry Houdini, the master of impossible escapes. He could pick any lock, break any chain, escape any confinement devised by man. Imagine him now, not on a grand stage, but in a quiet police station in Britain, locked in a simple cell. He worked for hours, sweat dripping, tools breaking, his reputation crumbling with each failed attempt. And then an officer walked by and simply pushed the door. It had never been locked. You are not trapped. You just believe you are. Today, we're going to talk about the most powerful prison on Earth, not made of steel or concrete, made of something far more binding. Imagine your hands right now reaching out in the darkness, feeling for barriers that aren't there, stopped only by the weight of a belief. This prison is your own mind.
We've been sold a beautiful lie. A lie whispered in songs, celebrated in movies, enshrined in our most sacred vows. That clinging is caring. That possession is passion. That if you truly love something, you never let it go. We watch as wedding rings transform into invisible handcuffs, as embraces slowly dissolve into chains of expectation. We call it romantic. Emmet Fox called it spiritual suicide. Bronnie Ware spent years beside hospital beds, listening to the final confessions of the dying. She documented their deepest regrets in the top 5 regrets of the dying. The most common regret wasn't about money lost or chances missed. It was this: I wish I had lived a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. They died realizing they had spent decades in cells of other people's expectations, holding on to relationships that suffocated them like beautiful flowers kept in a vase without water, careers that deadened them, identities that were never theirs to begin with. I remember a woman who told me she stayed in a marriage for 30 years for the sake of her children. She said, "I did it for them." But her children, now adults, confessed they had always wished she had left because they grew up in a house without joy. She thought she was being a loving mother, but she was teaching her children that love meant self-abandonment. What are you holding on to out of a sense of love that is actually an expression of fear? They discovered too late what Emmet Fox knew. Attachment isn't love. It's fear wearing a beautiful mask. When you cling to someone, you're not loving them. You're terrified of losing the version of yourself that exists only through them. When you refuse to let go of what's already gone, you're not being loyal. You're being a prison guard to your own heart. But imagine, just for a moment, the lightness of dropping those chains, the freedom of realizing you were always whole to begin with.
But here's what they never taught you about letting go. Detachment isn't emotional numbness. It's not becoming a stone-hearted sage who cares about nothing. Imagine a hand clenched so tight around a bird it suffocates it, slowly opening to let it transform into pure light and fly free. True detachment is the most alive thing you can do. Let me tell you what happened when I finally understood this. I was clinging to a relationship that had been dead for months, maybe years, but I couldn't let go. Why? Because I had confused my identity with another person's validation. Without them, who was I? I thought letting go meant losing everything, until I realized I had already lost everything by holding on. When you let go, you don't lose the thing you were clinging to. You gain the space for who you are truly meant to be. The night I finally said, I release this with love, something miraculous happened. Not because the universe suddenly rewarded my surrender, but because I stopped fighting a war that existed only in my mind. My palms were empty, but for the first time, they felt like they were glowing with a newfound energy. Emmet Fox taught that the spiritual realm operates on different laws than the physical world. In the physical world, when you let go of something, it falls. In the spiritual world, when you let go, that's when it can finally fly. Picture a butterfly trapped inside your closed hands. Only when you open them can it emerge and show its true beauty. Detachment isn't giving up. It's tuning in to what wants to emerge, to who you really are beneath all the clinging. It's choosing trust over control, faith over fear, presence over possession.
But let's get specific about these prisons we create, these invisible walls we build around ourselves, brick by painstaking brick. There's the cell of external validation. You've locked yourself behind the need for likes, approval, recognition. Every day you perform for an audience that doesn't even know your real name. There's the cell of your comfort zone. You've convinced yourself that small and safe equals smart. But Fox knew, the person who never takes risks takes the biggest risk of all, the risk of never really living. There's the cell of perfectionism. You wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect version of yourself before you act. You spend your life polishing the bars of your cage, making it a beautiful prison, but a prison nonetheless. You forget that a masterpiece is just a series of corrected mistakes, and that life is lived not in perfection, but in the courage to be imperfectly alive. And then there's the cell of your expired identity. You're still introducing yourself as who you used to be, the successful business owner from 5 years ago, the heartbroken victim from a decade past, the promising student from another lifetime. Tell me, when was the last time you hid your truth to avoid losing someone? When did you make yourself smaller to fit into someone else's expectations? When did you choose the familiar prison over the terrifying freedom? You press your hands against invisible glass, leaving marks on a barrier that only you can see. You're Houdini, working frantically to escape a door that was never locked. And now your hands, tired from the struggle, slowly move toward a door handle they could have turned all along. The tragedy isn't that you're trapped. The tragedy is that you've become so comfortable in your cell, you've forgotten what the outside world looks like. But imagine the freedom of stepping through those invisible doors, rediscovering the world that has always been waiting for you, ready to embrace who you truly are.
So, what does it actually look like to push the door? As you choose to turn the handle, imagine the chains that have bound you dissolving into particles of light. It starts with a single thought. Fox called it the mental equivalent. For every external condition, there's an internal belief creating it. You want to escape the prison of needing constant validation? The mental equivalent is, I am complete without external approval. Not as an affirmation you repeat, as a truth you embody. You want to break free from a relationship that's become a cage? The mental equivalent isn't, I don't need them. It's, I love them enough to set us both free. Perhaps you are clinging to a creative project, terrified of failure. The old thought is, what if it's not good enough?
The mental equivalent is not, I am a genius. It is the simple, humble truth. My value is not in the outcome, but in the courage to create. I release this project to its highest purpose, whatever that may be. What belief can you release today to open a new door? You want to release the identity that no longer serves you? Stop introducing yourself by your past. Start saying, I am becoming. Imagine not one, but multiple doors opening simultaneously, each leading to a new possibility. But here's the part that changes everything. Detachment isn't something you do, it's something you allow. You don't have to force the door open. You just have to stop believing it's locked. Your hand reaches for the handle and pauses, realizing it was never the door that was heavy, but the belief that it was. Fox taught that spiritual transformation happens not through struggle, but through recognition. The prison was always an illusion. The key was always in your hand. You are not escaping from something. You are awakening to who you've always been.
But what replaces attachment once you let it go? Trust. Not trust that everything will work out the way you want. Trust that everything is already working out exactly as it should. Trust is like releasing a seed into the wind, knowing it will land exactly where it belongs, without you needing to control its flight. I learned this the hard way. When I tried to control every detail of my career, I had spreadsheets for my spreadsheets, backup plans for my backup plans. I was so busy trying to force doors open that I missed the ones that were already unlocked. I remember once missing a huge opportunity and feeling devastated. I thought my path was blocked. Months later, a far better opportunity appeared, one that would never have been possible if the first door hadn't closed. The universe wasn't punishing me. It was protecting me. It was guiding me. I just didn't trust the process. The morning I finally surrendered, not in defeat, but in recognition, opportunities began appearing like flowers after rain. Trust is like releasing a leaf into a river, knowing it will flow to its destination without your intervention, carried by the current of life. Not because the universe suddenly noticed me, but because I finally had space to notice what was already there. Fox knew this secret. Faith isn't believing something will happen. Faith is the absence of desperation about whether it happens at all. Imagine yourself walking calmly and centered while storms of uncertainty rage around you. That is trust. When you trust, you don't need to cling. When you don't need to cling, you can receive. When you can receive, life stops being something you endure and starts being something that flows through you.
This is what spiritual masters have always meant by surrender. Not giving up your power. Aligning with a power greater than your fear.
And this transformation changes everything about how you love. Real love doesn't seek to complete itself through another person. It shares its completeness. I used to demand that my best friend be available whenever I was struggling, as if their presence was proof of my worth. The moment I stopped needing them and simply chose to enjoy them, our friendship deepened into something far more true and powerful. When you love without attachment, you're not asking the other person to be your salvation. You're not trying to fix them, change them, or keep them in a box that makes you comfortable. You're saying, I see who you really are, and I honor your journey, even when it leads away from me. Imagine holding something precious and beautiful in your hands, and then instead of closing your fingers around it, you open them and let it fly. This kind of love is terrifying to the ego because it requires you to love from your center, not from your emptiness. But it's also the only kind of love that's actually free. And freedom, Fox taught us, is the only environment where real love can survive. A garden where flowers grow without being forced. When you love this way, you stop being afraid of loss, because you know that anything that can be lost was never really yours to begin with. And anything that is truly yours will never leave. This kind of free love doesn't just transform your relationships, it creates communities where everyone can thrive, free from chains. Imagine a world where every person, loving without possession, builds bonds of trust and authenticity, a network of freedom that uplifts everyone.
The Gospel of John says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free." In The Matrix, Morpheus tells Neo, "I can only show you the door. You have to walk through it." But here's what they both knew, and what Emmet Fox spent his life teaching. The door was never locked. You have become the warden of a prison with no bars. You have appointed yourself the keeper of chains that don't exist. You have spent years trying to escape from your own imagination. You have seen that attachment is fear disguised as love. You have discovered that yourselves, validation, perfectionism, old identities are illusions. You have felt that trust is the force that opens doors without effort, and that free love is true freedom. Now, are you ready to push your door? Imagine all the images we've explored, the chains, the cells, the locked doors, all dissolving now into pure, radiant light. The relationships that drain you, you can love them and let them go. The career that suffocates you, you can honor what it taught you and move forward. The identity that no longer fits, you can thank it for its service and step into who you're becoming. You don't need to escape. You need to wake up. Right now, somewhere in your life, you are holding on to something that is holding you back. A grudge, a fear, an expectation, a version of yourself that expired years ago. You know what it is. You've always known. Imagine yourself stepping through an open doorway now into a space of brilliant, healing light. Today, I want you to do something that will change your life. Write down one thing you've been clinging to, just one. Then write these words: I release this with trust and love. Say it out loud. Mean it. Feel the door open. And then, in the comments below, share what you released. Not for validation, not for sympathy, but to create a community of the courageous. People who chose freedom over familiarity. Imagine a vast network of light, connecting individual points of courage across the world. Because when you free yourself, you give permission for others to do the same. When you push your door open, you show the world that their doors were never locked either. The question isn't whether you're ready to be free. The question is, are you ready to stop pretending you're not? You are not trapped. You never were. The door was always open. Push it.